With the Black Ops 7 Zombies full reveal right around the corner, I thought this would be a great time to go over everything I want to see in Black Ops 7 Zombies, basically my full wish list for what I think the game needs to be good. Even though some of the things I ask for in this wish list might be somewhat unrealistic, I think it's worth talking about nonetheless. We're going to talk about things from the gameplay mechanics to the map design to the progression systems and various other things. There's obviously some stuff we already know from leaks and the limited information we have from the recent Black Ops 7 reveal, but we don't know that much, so I'm still going to keep this quite open and list off things that I just want to see from this game. The first thing I want to talk about encompasses quite a few points that I'm going to get into, but the overall encompassing point here is that I want a classic feeling game. I've talked about this 1,000 times, but I really do think we need to see some of these mechanics go back to how they used to be, or at least closer to that. Now, the current leaks suggest that we're going to get a classic mode in Black Ops 6, so we might also see that in Black Ops 7, and I think that's what they're going to end up doing. They're probably going to have the core game be very similar to Black Ops 6's mechanics, but then if you want something even close to classic zombies, you'll have to play the classic mode. I actually did a whole video talking about why I don't think that's a great idea. I don't think it's a good idea to split the community between two completely separate modes, and I also don't expect it to work all that well, because inevitably, the maps are going to have to be designed around one set of mechanics. It's going to be very difficult for them to design maps around both set of mechanics, and chances are they'll design them around the modern mechanics, which will make the classic mode just not play as well. I also don't have a lot of faith in the idea of a classic mode, because are they actually going to go all the way and make it fully feel like classic zombies, or is it just going to feel like a limited version of modern zombies? That's what I'm worried about. So ultimately, that's not what I want to see, but of course it would be better than nothing. A classic mode existing would be better than them not even trying to do classic mechanics. But like I said before, I would much rather they find a way to mix the modern and classic systems in a way that breathes life into the mode and makes it feel like the best possible version of round-based zombies. So let's go through all these mechanics that I want to see in this game, and we're going to get kind of specific with some of them. First things first, we need something closer to the classic point system to return. I am so against the current modern point system. I think it's one of the worst aspects of modern zombies. For those of you who don't know the differences between the systems, the classic system made it so you get 10 points for every bullet that hits a zombie from your gun. And then you got a specific amount of points for the finishing blow towards the zombies. Melee was the most amount of points you'd get, a headshot was also a decent amount, and then a regular kill would be a bit less. But in the modern system, they took away the 10 bonus points you get from hitting the zombies with your bullets. Instead, you only get a fixed amount when you finish off the zombie, which is either 90 points or 115, depending on if it's a regular kill or a headshot. And in Black Ops 6, they actually made it so melee kills are 105, which is even lower than headshots. And it seems like the reason most people don't like this new system is because it means you get less points in the later rounds. It's overall a bit harder to get more points. But that's actually not the reason that I don't like the new point system. I actually have completely different reasons for why I dislike it. There's a few reasons I prefer the classic system. First of all, the classic system was way more engaging in the early rounds. There was more strategies involved with how you kill zombies and how you deal with hordes of zombies. You actually had to think to yourself, is this zombie worth point maxing from it? Which point maxing meant shooting the zombie a bunch of times in the leg with a weaker gun and then meleeing it to finish it off to get the maximum amount of points. Now that method was not very easy because especially on certain maps, when the zombies start grouping up, you can't effectively do that. So eventually you're just going to have to deal with just using a weaker gun to kill it completely and not even try to melee it. If it's an insta-kill, you can maybe melee it, but other than that, it's not a good idea. This also encourages using melee weapons frequently, which is definitely not encouraged in modern zombies whatsoever. But every single time you come across a zombie in those early rounds, there's just something you have to think about and different ways of getting more points from each individual zombie. And I find that to be so much more interesting and engaging than what we have now, which is simply just shoot the zombie in the head. That's it. People shoot through those early rounds in modern zombies without even thinking about it. It's so brainless and it's so thoughtless, and I just don't like that. I think that's not as engaging, it's not as interesting, and I think it's resulted in the early rounds of modern zombies being very boring. Early rounds in some of the classic games are sometimes better than the later rounds. Early rounds on Origins, for example, is some of the best zombies experiences you will ever get, in my opinion. But on any Black Ops 6 map, I am just sitting in the spawn room and just shooting through those first 10 rounds as fast as I can because they are just not that interesting. I also think this results in less repetitive matches because with the classic point system, the amount of points you had by a specific round changed game to game depending on what strategies you were doing and how effective you were at those strategies. The whole goal of classic zombies was trying to get across the map on as early of a round as possible, especially on a map like Origins where you're trying to get a staff before the Panzer shows up. So making sure you're getting as many points out of each zombie as possible is really important so you can get across the map as fast as possible. But in modern zombies, you get a very similar amount of points by each specific round pretty much every time you play. There's few differences, of course, because you might not get every single headshot, of course. That could result in you getting a bit less points, and there's other ways of getting more points in modern zombies, like utilizing the SAM trials and different side Easter eggs, but in general, the amount of points you get is going to be much more similar game to game, which results in a more repetitive feeling. Another thing that I preferred about the classic point system was the fact that it encouraged weapon variety mid-match. Because of the 10 bonus points you get with each bullet hitting a zombie, weaker guns got you more points in classic zombies. So it was actually quite beneficial to use weaker guns, which usually were wall weapons. Sometimes there were some in the box that were also weak, but it was a very beneficial strategy to get a weak gun and utilize that as your point gun in the early rounds. Obviously, at a certain point in the game, you really didn't need to do that anymore because you had enough points to get your weapons pack-a-punch and all your perks, so you didn't really need to keep doing it. But it was really effective in those early rounds. And then for your final gun that you're going to use later on in the game, you would go for a more powerful weapon. But that encourages variety. That gets players to use multiple types of weapons in a specific match for completely different reasons. Whereas in modern zombies, you really don't have a reason to use different guns, with some exceptions. Obviously, there's some situations where explosive weapons are better than bullet guns, but there's not that many different cases. I feel like most of the time using the Maelstrom shotgun is like perfectly fine for pretty much everything in Black Ops 6, except for maybe like the Richthofen boss fight. There's a couple guns that are way better for that. But like I said, there's few exceptions there. Majority of the time, the Maelstrom shotgun is the best at pretty much everything, so why wouldn't I just stick to using that other than if I'm doing the camo grind? I think it's good to encourage players to use different weapons, not even just in general, but I mean within the specific match itself. The idea of using a different gun in the early rounds than the gun you're going to use later on, that was a great aspect of classic zombies. And I've heard a lot of people argue that this actually created less variety because you were not encouraged to use certain guns like shotguns and sniper rifles, and I think this really just depends on the game. It depends on how well that game is balanced. Obviously, a game like Black Ops 1 did not do a good job with it because their shotguns and sniper rifles were not that good. But a game like Black Ops 3 did a great job balancing this because Black Ops 3 had fantastic shotguns, and of course, the Draken Sniper was one of the best guns in zombies history. So in Black Ops 3, for example, you might hit the mystery box and get the Haymaker on a very early round, and you're going to think to yourself, this gun is not good for points, but I might take it anyways so I can use it later or just keep me safer in the early rounds, especially if you're playing a map like Shadows of Evil. It's great to use that against the Margwa, but you're still going to want a gun like the VMP or the Kuda or the Pharaoh to just get points. You want those guns as well. There's different reasons to use different guns in the game. It's an interesting risk versus reward system, which in my opinion, risk versus reward is the best thing you can do in game design because it creates the most interesting choices that the player has to make. And it's also interesting because it's kind of a spectrum where there's a bunch of guns that are kind of in the middle where they're not the best for getting points and they're also not the best for getting kills, but they kind of sit in a middle ground where they're decent at both of those things. An example of that would be a gun like the HVK or the ICR. Those are guns you still might want to use because they're going to get some points and they're also going to be able to kill zombies decently well, at least for a little bit. But they're not as good as killing as the Haymaker, and they're not as good at getting points as something like the VMP. And I've also heard people argue that modern zombies has better weapon variety because more weapons are viable. And I do agree with that statement that more weapons nowadays are viable, but that has nothing to do with the point system. It has quite literally nothing to do with it. It's because of the health cap. They made it so guns can actually kill in the higher rounds. And I do like that about modern zombies. I actually think that's one of the best aspects about it, but it has nothing to do with the point system. They could still keep that aspect of modern zombies where all guns are viable and all guns can kill, but still have the classic point system there, so you have unique reasons for using different guns in those early rounds, but still ultimately any gun is still usable at a certain point. It's just some guns are going to be better than others. And I'd actually really love to see a zombies game that does this, because they've actually never done a zombies game with the health cap and also the classic point system. They first introduced the health cap in Black Ops 4, and that was also the game where they changed the point system. So we've never actually seen this be done, and I would love to see it happen. There has been quite a lot of valid criticism against the classic point system when it comes to being able to cheese points by infinitely farming with a weak gun. Of course, in older games, you can just get a wall buy and just train zombies around and just keep shooting the zombies with that gun to basically just farm points infinitely. And nobody cared back then because ultimately there wasn't that many things you had to buy anyways, so you're not going to be sitting there on round 40 farming points. It's a waste of your time. But in the newer games with having so many more things to purchase, it could definitely cause a problem where people are getting points too easily. But there's easy ways to fix this, and I think the health cap would already be helping with it because you wouldn't be able to farm as many points from them considering they die a lot quicker. But also, you can just simply implement a point cap with the classic point system. I have nothing against them changing elements of the classic point system as long as that foundational element of it is still there. But if they want to say, okay, you can only get up to 300 extra bonus points from each individual zombie, that's fine. I don't need to infinitely farm points from zombies. If there's a cap on it, that's totally fine with me. As long as the foundation of the classic point system is intact, then I am happy. Before we get into the rest of the video, I would just like to let you guys know that Blacklyte is currently having a Labor Day sale with great deals on gaming chairs, gaming desks, and a variety of other products. If you use the link in the description and put in the code XpertFusion, you will get 10% off on all products on this site. Now let's get back to the rest of the video. The next core mechanic that definitely needs to be changed in Black Ops 7 Zombies is loadouts. Loadouts kind of suck in my opinion. I think it's been one of the worst aspects of modern zombies. We really need to go back to having a starting pistol for each map. But I do get why a lot of people like loadouts, so they don't have to completely remove them, they could just change how they work. And I do have a few different ideas for how they can rework this system, so let's go through all of them right here. The first idea I have is a loadout wall buy. This would be a designated wall buy spot on every single map that would ideally be as far away from spawn as possible, and it would give you the ability to purchase your loadout weapon for a specific amount of points, probably a decent amount of points, like 5,000 points. So this would basically mean you can guarantee your wall buy every single time you play, but it's just going to take you some time. You can't get it right away at round 1. You might have to wait till round 10, round 15, whenever you can get those points and you can get to that part of the map. And of course, it comes at a cost, so it's not this free thing that you can just spawn in with, making the game way too easy at the start. This would still encourage people to hit the mystery box, get wall weapons, and actually utilize core elements from zombies, but if they still want that guaranteed gun down the line, they could do it eventually. They can also do a small side quest on each map that allows you to unlock your loadout weapon. I think people wouldn't like this though because a lot of people just hate the idea of doing quests, but it's an idea that I personally wouldn't mind. I also had a very complicated idea about a pick 10-like system for zombies, which I still think this would be a bit much, but it would be pretty interesting if by default you had to start with a starting pistol, you only had a 5 perk limit, you couldn't start with armor, you didn't start with gobblegums, but if you want to do these different things, if you want to start with armor, if you want to start with gobblegums, if you want to start with any gun you want, if you want to have extra perk slots, you can do that. You just need to use the different elements of the pick 10 system to actually get that. So for example, if you want to have no perk limit, but you also want to start with any gun, it's basically impossible to do with that class system. I'm not going to go into specifics about that because I honestly don't have very specific examples for it, but that general concept does kind of intrigue me. I don't know if that's the best idea here though, but it would be better than nothing. I also think if every map has very diverse wall buy selections, people might want loadouts less, because imagine if every gun in the game had at least one wall buy spot on at least one map. Now of course you wouldn't get to see that actually fully panned out until the final DLC map, but just that very concept would make it so if you want to grind a specific weapon's camos, you would just have to choose the map where that weapon is a wall buy on it. And honestly, regardless of if they change the loadout system or not, I think this is definitely something they should do because I think it makes maps a lot more unique by having different wall buys, but I think it would definitely help the maps quite a bit and would make loadouts less desirable. And also back to the conversation of the point system, if they just bring back the classic point system, I think loadouts as a whole would be less of a problem to me because I would be encouraged to start with a starting pistol because of that classic point system feel of using the pistol to maximize as many points from the zombies as possible. It would definitely result in more diverse loadout selections for sure. So if they don't change the loadout system, at least changing the point system would help. And the last idea I have is simply just doing different modes that have loadouts. You can just honestly do that with directed mode. Just make directed mode the mode where you get a loadout weapon, and if you play regular, you don't get a loadout weapon. That's simple. So if you want to grind your camos and your weapon levels, you just play directed mode. And honestly, they could change directed mode a bit to make it so you actually can play it infinitely rather than doing that round cap. Maybe they can just rework how that mode works entirely. Make it like a casual focused mode instead, where you could do the Easter egg, it carries you through the Easter egg, but if you want to just play casually, you can do that too, but you don't get the same rewards as you would playing regularly. So it's not a mode people are going to want to play all the time unless they're grinding camos and grinding weapon levels and all that stuff. Ultimately, I would be completely fine with them getting rid of loadouts entirely. I am not the target audience for loadouts at all, but I do think Treyarch should find a way to please as many people as possible. And the way I see it in game design, they shouldn't be looking at what people like and dislike. They should be looking at why people like and dislike certain things. So for loadouts, they just need to see what do people like about loadouts and also what do people not like about loadouts. In my opinion, one of the main things people like about loadouts seems to be just the ease of camo grinding and leveling up your weapons. They just don't want to have to rely on box RNG. They want to be able to just get their gun, spawn in, and just start killing zombies to grind those camos as fast as possible. And I've argued this many times before that the game mechanics should never be designed around the camo grind. I think that's just bad game design entirely. And I'm not saying it's the only reason it's designed that way, but obviously it's one of the reasons. But the thing is, camo grinding is not something people do in the early rounds. You're not really doing that much grinding on round 5, for example. You know, you're doing that on round 15 and beyond. So I really do think my first idea about the loadout wall buy, where you have to purchase your loadout weapon, would still work fine for these people, because ultimately they're not going to be grinding to those later rounds anyways, so they can wait till round 15 to get their gun. It's not that end of the world for them. And then people don't like loadouts because they don't like how it discourages using the mystery box, using wall buys, and overall just making the early rounds too easy. But if you couldn't get your loadout gun until a much later round, then this problem wouldn't exist, because you're still going to be encouraged to use the box and the wall buys in those earlier rounds, because obviously you can't rely on the starting pistol for that long. To me, this would solve so many damn problems, and I just think it's such a no-brainer decision. I mean, even Warzone makes you earn your loadout weapon. You don't spawn in with any gun you want. You start with a pistol, and then eventually you can get your loadout weapon from a loadout drop. Like, even they make you earn it, so I don't understand why zombies can't do that too. I think it would actually be really, really fun and really interesting, because imagine you have a loadout weapon as your wall buy and you want to get it, but you hit the mystery box before you get it just to keep you alive until then, and maybe you get lucky and get a gun that's even better than your loadout gun. So you think to yourself, well, maybe I don't even need to get the loadout gun anymore because I got a really good gun out of the mystery box. Or maybe you got the same gun out of the mystery box just by chance. Obviously, it would make no sense for a player to put a wall buy as their loadout wall buy slot, but that's just up to the player then. They just got to make sure that they're not going to choose a wall buy weapon as their loadout weapon. All in all, the loadout system definitely needs a change. I think it's easily one of the biggest issues with modern zombies, and I think finding a middle ground solution such as the loadout wall buy would be the best thing they can do. The next thing I want to see in this game is the removal of rarities. Now, it seems like rarities are basically confirmed to return, because in the trailer you could kind of see a colored wall buy, but then there was another shot of a wall buy that didn't look colored, so honestly, I couldn't really tell. But I think rarities need to be removed from zombies for a few reasons. First of all, rarities are kind of a band-aid for the loadout system. They only exist because of the loadout system. So if they did change the loadout system, then of course you can remove them. But honestly, even if they don't change the loadout system, I still think they should remove rarities. Even Vanguard changed the rarity system in a way that I think was actually quite better, but it didn't do it perfectly because the rarities were tied to the pack-a-punch tiers instead, and you could actually get fully pack-a-punched weapons out of the mystery box. It did make it so it was actually worth hitting the mystery box in Vanguard, which is the only modern zombies game that really feels like it's worth hitting the mystery box. But in doing so, it also made it so it wasn't that worth it to save up points and actually pack a punch your weapon itself. It was more so encouraged to just keep hitting the box again and again and again. But in general, I just want rarities gone. I don't think they need to be in Call of Duty Zombies. It's a redundant progression system. It's the same as pack-a-punch. It basically does the same thing, just on a different scale. I also think rarities have kind of taken away some of the personality of weapons, because I don't like the idea that you're not really excited for what gun you get out of the box, more so you're excited for what the rarity is. And I just don't like that concept. I want it to be more about the guns, like it was in classic zombies. I mean, imagine if there was a rarity system in World at War, and just imagine the feeling of getting a green rarity PPSH out of the box. Would that be nearly as exciting as just getting the PPSH out of the box like you do in World at War? Of course not. It would feel kind of weird. I mean, of course, you're still going to be like, okay, you know, it's a good gun, so I'll get it and then just upgrade the rarity eventually, but you have to still deal with that green rarity version for a little bit, and it's just kind of gross. Like, I don't know. Of course, if you get the orange rarity, it's going to feel a bit better, but I think the existence of the low rarity versions of it does kind of take away that iconic feeling the weapon brings. And I think if they want to bring back iconic guns into zombies, because to be honest, I don't think the guns have been that memorable the past few years. Of course, there's definitely some that are pretty cool, usually because of their attachments. I think Black Ops 6 has done a really good job with their attachments. That's definitely given guns some personality, but I think rarities hurt them quite substantially. I just don't think about them as much because of it. I really think they should just go all in on the Pack-a-Punch system being how you upgrade your weapons, and of course, stuff like double tap, dead shot, and various attachments also can progress your weapons in different ways. Next thing I want to see in Black Ops 7 Zombies is the removal of salvage. I am not a big fan of the salvage system that's been in the game since Cold War, and just like rarities, this kind of feels like a band-aid system that's only there because of other systems, and I think it's because of the point system. I think the fact that you don't earn as many points in the modern point system, they had to introduce a whole new currency that you can earn in order to make it so you can purchase a lot of other things in the game. And there's a few reasons I don't like the salvage system. First of all, it's kind of redundant. I mean, you earn it in a very similar way just by killing the zombies. Of course, you're not getting the salvage from every single zombie like you do for points, but every now and then it just kind of drops on the floor from zombies that you kill. And so it's a very passive progression system. You just have to wait for it to drop, you pick it up, and then you use it either on equipment, ammo mods, rarity upgrades, or score streaks. And that right there is my biggest issue with it, is the fact that you get so many of these items with salvage, and I think these items should be earned through different means. I don't like the idea of being able to just infinitely get score streaks with salvage. So the conversation of score streaks is going to be tied to salvage for me because they kind of go hand in hand. I don't have an issue with score streaks existing. I actually quite enjoy score streaks in zombies. I just really hate how they're earned. I don't like the fact that you can get them so easily from the crafting bench. I think score streaks should be exclusive to the mystery box, maybe dropping from zombies every now and then, but not frequently, and of course, through various side Easter eggs. I just don't think it should be something you can directly keep earning, especially when there's really powerful streaks like the mutant injection and chopper gunner in the game, where you can just keep buying them in the later rounds, and that turns into the high round strategy. And the last thing I don't like about salvage is just having all that salvage drop from the zombies and be all over the floor. It just makes the UI so messy because you have to see that pop-up of salvage on your screen constantly. It's a pop-up I believe you can't even remove. It just makes the game quite messy. And one of the biggest issues with it is the fact that it is one of the streamlined systems that's on every single map in the modern zombies games. This is something I'm going to be talking about a few times in this video, but I really do think the streamlined systems that are the same on every map is one of the biggest issues with modern zombies, and I really hope this changes into Black Ops 7. Black Ops 7 needs a variety of unique features on each map, and salvage is one of those things that made a lot of the maps feel too similar to each other. But we will definitely be talking about that more later in this video. Overall, I just want salvage removed. If they want to do some map unique currency systems, I'm fine with that. I actually loved the ticket system from Spaceland in Infinite Warfare Zombies. That was a really cool system because it was map unique and you earned it in a different way than points. So definitely keep doing stuff like that, but salvage is a no-no for me. Next, let's talk about perk limits. And I'm going to be honest, I used to feel very strongly about this, but I'm kind of mixed on it now, where I wouldn't mind seeing no perk limit return in Black Ops 7 Zombies. But I do think overall, I would prefer seeing a perk limit return if it's like a 5 or 6 perk limit. I don't think it should be 4. And there has to be a significant amount of ways to earn free perks beyond the perk limit for every map. This is something they honestly haven't done a good job with in the past all that often. The only maps that really did a decent job with it were Origins, Call of the Dead, Zetsubo no Shima, and maybe like Die Rise and Buried, although it was maybe a little bit too easy to get more than 4 perks on those maps. I just like perk limits because it makes your choices of picking your perks actually more interesting, and you also have to actually work to get all the perks. You can't just guarantee them. Pretty much every time I play Black Ops 6, by round 30, I'm going to have every single perk in the game. So the feeling of having every perk has kind of been lost, whereas you play a map like Origins, the feeling of getting every single perk is such a special feeling because it rarely actually happens. But I don't expect perk limits to return out of anything in this list. This is the one thing that I'm like, they're definitely not going to do, because I think most people prefer no perk limit nowadays. But I think it's only because we've really never seen a perk limit done perfectly. It's always been not done that great, aside from those few examples, but even those maps didn't do it perfectly. I also think you would have to return the system from Infinite Warfare where you can remove your perks whenever you want, because I think that's what perk limits should be. It shouldn't be this thing where you're kind of forced into it once you buy those perks. It should be something where you can switch around your perks as much as you want in game. So for example, let's say Black Ops 6 had a perk limit. You could maybe get Vulture Aid in the early rounds to help you rack up salvage and points, but you might not need it as much in the later rounds, so you might swap it out with something like Double Tap that's going to help you out way more in the later rounds. I think this would be quite interesting, and I would love to see them do it at least down the line, but maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to do it for Black Ops 7. When it comes to perk upgrades, I do hope augments return, but I hope they substantially change them. I don't want to see the exact same augments carried forward. I also would like to actually have to earn the augments again, because that was part of the fun with the Black Ops 6's launch. I would also love to have to earn the augments again, and of course if they changed what the augments were, it would make sense that they would make you do that, because part of the fun with Black Ops 6's launch was earning the augments and learning what each one does over time. But they definitely have to change the system of how you earn the augments, because I really didn't like it in Black Ops 6 where you could only do one at a time, and it was just based on getting XP while you had it selected in the research menu. That was a really weird system. Instead, I think it should work to where the more you use the perk or the field upgrade or the ammo mod, it gets the augments unlocked over time. So for example, if you want to get augments for Ether Shroud, you maybe have to get like 500 kills while in Ether Shroud mode to get all the augments, or maybe just a couple of the augments, and then maybe you have to do another challenge with Ether Shroud active. And I think this is very likely to happen because it sounds very similar to the overclocking system that they're going to be doing in multiplayer. They've already announced this system where you'll be able to upgrade score streaks, equipment, and field upgrades by using them in multiplayer. So hopefully this also is in zombies with perks and ammo mods and field upgrades. I think it'd be quite fun to do. I also kind of hope they make it so you have to earn the augments in-game as well. Like maybe you have to earn them through the researching method to begin with, but if you want to actually get it in the match itself, you still have to use that item for a little bit in the match to earn it. Kind of similar to how you upgrade the tiers of your specialist weapons in Black Ops 4, you have to actually use the weapon throughout the match to upgrade it. I would love to see something like that return because I think zombies needs more progression systems that are actually active, like it actually requires you to engage with it to progress it. I think that would be way more fun than just instantly having your major and minor augments right when you get that perk or right when the match starts with your field upgrade. And speaking of field upgrades, I really do think this system needs to change. I'm not against field upgrades existing, but I much preferred specialist weapons that they did back in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4, especially the Black Ops 3 ones because you had to earn them in-game and they were map unique. And I would love for specialist weapons to come back. It would be so cool if every map had one or maybe even two specialist weapons that were unique to that map and you had to earn from a quest. But I do think they could still keep field upgrades in the game alongside specialist weapons. Maybe you can just choose between them. But I don't think players should be able to spawn in with their field upgrade. I think you should have to earn that in some way, shape, or form. My idea would be just straight up from the mystery box. Make it so all field upgrades are in the mystery box. If you want to get them, you got to hit the box for it. And I think this would be interesting because it would get players to actually use different field upgrades. I feel like I use the same field upgrade almost every single game, and that of course is with Ether Shroud, but it would be cool if I was hitting the box and every now and then getting different ones and using them until I eventually get the one that I actually want. Or hell, maybe they can just put them as wall buys. I don't know. I would just rather have to earn it in game. I don't like the idea of just starting with it. I don't know if you've noticed, but in this video, I've been frequently talking about how I think zombies should be more about starting with almost nothing and working your way up. I don't think zombies should be so focused on spawning in with a bunch of stuff already. Because to me, that's just not what zombies is, and at least it's not what it should be. Next up, I definitely think there needs to be a major change to the armor system. I'm personally not a huge fan of armor, but I don't think it's as big of a deal as it is to a lot of other people. It seems like armor is already confirmed for this game though, so I don't think we're going to be going back to some sort of shield system, unfortunately. Even though I would love to see shields return because those were really, really cool back in Black Ops 3 and 4. But assuming armor returns as it was in Black Ops 6, I think they need to heavily rework it in a few different ways. First of all, they have to nerf armor. Armor should not be this thing that you have to rely on so heavily against the special enemies. If they decrease the boss spam, then you don't really need to have armor nearly as much. If they just change how enemies interact with you in general. I just don't like the fact that so much of Black Ops 6 Zombies is spent just plating. You're just constantly plating back and forth, and I think it's just kind of a bit much. I wouldn't mind to see them return to a system like Cold War where you can just walk over the plates and they just automatically refill in your meter so you don't have to sit there plating a bunch. But like I said, in general, it should not be this thing that you have to rely on so heavily. I feel like the only time time the game actually feels somewhat difficult is when you aren't fully plated up, but like I said, that just means you're spending the entire match plating constantly, and I think it's just a bit much. I actually preferred how World War II's armor system worked, where you only lost your armor if the zombies hit you a certain amount, instead of it being something that just gets lost as you're getting hit by the zombies in general. This made it so if you avoid taking a certain amount of damage from the bosses, you wouldn't lose your armor as frequently. And of course, in World War II, it was harder to get more armor. You had to go actually buy it with points. But I think that was a better balance, making it so it's harder to get, but it's also harder to lose. I prefer that than it being very, very easy to lose, but also very, very easy to get. So again, you're constantly just plating up the entire game, and I just don't think that's good game design. I honestly wouldn't mind if they reworked it in a way to where you get more armor by killing zombies. Maybe it could be even a perk, like a armor-based perk, where you kill zombies and it refills your armor meter. And of course, you getting hit by zombies makes it go down, so you're basically getting more armor just as you're killing zombies instead of having to constantly replay it. And then assuming, of course, they have the same armor vest system as Black Ops 6, there should definitely be golden armor that you can unlock on most of the maps. I don't need that to be on every single map, but there should be some sort of side Easter egg reward that does something with your armor, because quest-related progression is always great. I also think you should not be able to start with one plate of armor whatsoever. You should start with 0 armor, and if you want to get armor, of course, you have to earn it or buy it or whatever they decide to do, but you should not be able to start with any of it. And lastly, I definitely think they need to put a zombie spin on the armor system instead of it literally just being a Warzone armor plates. And I think it would be really cool if they made it map unique. So for example, on a map like Citadel de Mor, imagine if the armor system was quite literally chainmail armor that the player has to wear in order to protect themselves. And you put like layers of something in between the chainmail as your protective armor. Something like that. Something that gives the maps more of a unique zombies feel to it rather than just being Warzone armor plates. When it comes to ammo crates, I kind of want those to be removed from the game because I don't like how easy it is to refill your ammo in modern zombies. It's just way too easy to just constantly keep going back and just refilling ammo. It makes it so max ammos aren't as rewarding, and it also makes it so you have less reason to actually swap your guns. If you run out of ammo, you don't really have a reason to go get a new gun. It also makes wall buys less useful. One of the main reasons wall buys are so useful in the older games is because you can keep getting ammo from them. And it's especially overpowered with wonder weapons where you can keep getting ammo from those. Now, I don't mind having like one ammo crate on the map, and I think it'd be really cool for them to return the concept of the ammo-matic machine from World at War. That was a cut concept of this perk machine that basically just gave you more ammo every time you went to it. They should bring that machine back instead of the ammo crates and have just one of those on the map. So if you want more ammo, you have to travel pretty far to wherever that machine is to get more ammo. So it's not going to be this easily accessible thing where you can just keep refilling your ammo in one spot. You're going to actually have to travel a bit for it. So you might not always want to bother doing it because of the distance it takes to actually get more ammo. Next, let's talk about the zombies HUD. This has been a big issue with modern zombies, where a lot of the HUDs are very intrusive and they're not unique to zombies either. They're usually just HUDs from Warzone or multiplayer thrown into zombies. And thankfully, I do think this year we will get our first zombies unique HUD since Black Ops 4. And there's a few reasons I think this is going to happen. First of all, they did show off the HUD for multiplayer and it looks very futuristic. And I just don't see them using that futuristic HUD for zombies. It just wouldn't fit whatsoever. And in the blog, they were talking about this HUD system that they're doing, and they were talking about how it crosses over from campaign to multiplayer, but they never mentioned zombies. So I do think that it probably will be something specific for those modes, but zombies is going to have its own HUD. I really do think Treyarch has listened to the feedback from Black Ops 6 because that was a big criticism a lot of people had when Black Ops 6 first released. It was all about the HUD just not being unique and just looking too much like multiplayer and Warzone. So I do think they're going to change up the HUD and they're going to make it look hopefully a lot more unique. But it shouldn't just be unique, it also needs to be better. I do think the HUDs haven't been amazing for a while. Even Black Ops 4, which did have a unique HUD, it wasn't that great. We need HUDs that are less intrusive, HUDs that are more stylized and more interesting. And by default, I really do think they need a limited HUD. There should not be that many HUD elements. If it was up to me, I would have the minimap, health bars, damage point numbers, and all that stuff removed completely from zombies, or at least saved specifically for directed mode, and that's it. But I do understand there's people out there who like those things, so if they really want to keep them, fine. But I do think they should have them turned off by default, because there's a lot of people out there who don't even know the HUD customization exists, and I don't think players want to spend their first 10 minutes of loading up a new game going through the HUD settings and trying to figure out how to make the game look decent. So I think the minimap, health bars, damage point numbers, all that stuff should be off by default. We definitely should be able to turn off the objective markers as well. All that stuff should be either off by default or just at least an option that's very clear to the player. And please, for the love of God, let us put the score feed where it used to be. In these newer games, the score feed is dead center in the screen, has all these numbers popping up when you shoot the zombies, and it's just way too intrusive in my opinion. That's just not what zombies should be. I want it to go back to where it was in the classic games, where the points that you were earning from the zombies popped up next to the points. It was very far away, not directly in the middle of the screen. I thought it was perfect. And in the newer games, of course, you can remove the score feed, but you can't change the position of it. I really want it to be right next to where the points were, just like in the older games. They also desperately need to fix the issue where if you change your HUD in Warzone, it also changes the HUD in Zombies and vice versa. It makes it very frustrating as someone who likes to play all modes in Call of Duty because I have to keep changing my HUD constantly. It was also like that in multiplayer for the first few months of Black Ops 6's lifecycle, but thankfully they fixed that around Season 2, but it still is broken for Warzone. And I really hope this isn't a problem in Black Ops 7. Next up, let's talk about the maps. So of course, we only have footage of one of the maps so far, that being the transit-inspired map in the Dark Ether, but there was some leaks about the other maps in the game, and I don't know how true those leaks are. Of course, they could definitely not be true, or maybe they were planned at one point but never ended up happening. There was a map leaked that is in New York City that takes place right after World War II in an alternate history where the Nazis won and they actually bombed New York. There was another map that said it was in Japan at a temple right next to a volcano. There was a Dark Ether space station map that was leaked. And the final two maps were a map in Afghanistan and a map in Vietnam. Regardless of if these are the maps we're going to see in the game or not, the maps absolutely have to be very unique. We need unique atmospheres, unique settings, and unique themes. I do not want any of these maps to look anything like another map in the game. And I'm kind of worried this might happen because chances are the maps in this game are all going to take place in the Dark Ether. And of course, the Dark Ether normally has that purple skybox look. I definitely do not want to see that on every single map. If every map has the same purple skybox, I would be so disappointed because every map should have its own color palette entirely. Black Ops 3 did a fantastic job with it. I mean, you look at every single map in the game, it basically has its own color scheme. You look at Shadows of Evil, it's oranges, yellows, and reds. You go to Dreisendrach, it's blues and whites. You go to Zetsubo, it's greens, yellows, and browns. You go to Garad Krovi, it's red, brown, and a little bit of gray in there. You go to Revelations and it's blue, red, and green, and pretty much every color in the book because that map was extremely colorful. But that led to each map feeling so unique from one another, and I really think they need to do stuff like that again. We can't see maps like Liberty Falls that are just this boring town that, in my opinion, doesn't really have much of a theme or color palette to it. It's quite literally just a town. Go far with the themings of these maps. Really make it feel like a whole new experience. You do not have to have this streamlined feel across the maps where they all feel like they could be in the same game. Do not do that. Make it feel like you're literally playing different games. With the core foundation still being the same, of course, but the feel of them should be very different. And I also don't want them to all take place at nighttime because that was something that a lot of people were criticizing about Liberty Falls, which I always thought was a silly piece of criticism because there's been so many daytime maps throughout COD history that look amazing. Liberty Falls didn't look bad because it was at daytime. It just looked bad because the map itself wasn't that interesting. There wasn't much going on with it. The saturation wasn't there. It just felt like a town that could have been ripped right from Warzone. There should be some daytime maps in this game. Honestly, that Japanese temple map at the volcano, that should be a daytime map because you can do some really beautiful visuals in a daytime setting for a map like that. Now, I loved the soundtrack in Black Ops 6 Zombies. It was one of the best parts about that game, but I think they need to go even further with the underscores on maps. Black Ops 3 did a fantastic job with that, where certain areas of the map have unique themes that only play in those areas of the map. And like I said, Black Ops 6 did actually do a decent job with this. There's quite a few areas that do that, but they need to go even further with it. They really need to just make each area have its own feel entirely just because of the underscore music, and make it be very loud and add to the cinematic feel that Zombies should have. Black Ops 4 also did a phenomenal job with this, especially in maps like Ancient Evil. The underscores are perfect. They really fit the location you're in and they fit the vibe of that area. I would love to see more stuff like that. Now back on the conversation of map uniqueness, they need maps to have more unique mechanics and features. So I kind of touched on this before, but this is something that really hasn't been good in Modern Zombies. Modern Zombies maps do not have that many unique features. Sometimes they'll throw in a little thing here or there, but usually it's not a big element. But they need to go back to maps literally having entire systems and mechanics that are exclusive to those maps. For example, the Afterlife system on Mob of the Dead, or Leroy on Buried, or the Plant system on Zetsubou no Shima. These are all features that set these maps apart and are things you can interact with as part of the main gameplay loop. And I think this would also add to the map depth as well, which in general, I think maps need way more depth. My definition of depth would simply just be the quantity of content on a map that takes time to learn and master. And again, something like the Plant system from Zetsubou no Shima added a lot to those maps because it was an extra mechanic that you had to learn over time, and it wouldn't take like one day to fully master it. You would actually take some time to learn all the different combinations, what they can do, how they can help you, and the fact that they're unique to that map makes it so it's a new learning experience. Little features like this do a lot for map depth, and I think we really need more of them because, like I said, nowadays they just don't have much of that. The maps are so heavily based around the streamlined systems and mechanics that are on all of the maps that it kind of takes away from the depth that maps could have. I also think something that would add to map depth is deeper maps that have more explorable areas. Map exploration hasn't been that interesting in Zombies in a while. Part of it is because the maps aren't that big anymore. I mean, some of the maps are decently sized. I think Shattered Vale is the only map in Black Ops 6 that genuinely felt like quite an interesting experience to explore it. And a big reason for that was all the different hidden rooms on that map. Now, of course, all those hidden rooms were part of the main Easter egg. I think they should go as far as to have maps that have hidden rooms that aren't even part of the main Easter egg and are just side content that you can explore if you want to, but you don't have to. Stuff like that would really set maps apart. Like, for example, imagine having a map that has a whole cave system connected to it, and you don't have to go in there for that many different reasons, but you can if you want. And the cave has an exclusive special enemy being spiders. Let's say it's like a spider cave, and it's this really deep cave system that's very hard to get around, but there's all these spiders that make it a lot harder to survive in there. And just like Zetsubou no Shima, which did have a spider cave in it, you could have like a special big spider boss fight in there that's not the main Easter egg boss fight. It's just something on the side, but it's just extra content to add to the map that adds a lot of depth to the experience. And imagine those Zetsubou no Shima caves, but imagine they were way deeper and you could explore them even further. And maybe there's a secret side Easter egg reward you can get in there as well, not just the Widow's Wine thing. That's what I think Zombies maps should be. I really think they need to go further with map exploration, and I really hope Black Ops 7 can do that. It sounds like Transit might be a decent map for that, considering it's the biggest map in Zombies history, so I'm definitely very excited to see what that map can do. Now, going back to the conversation of map uniqueness, one thing they can do to make maps feel as unique as possible is having a different trial system for every map. This is something I really disliked about Cold War and Black Ops 6, is that every map in each of these games has the exact same trial system. And don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with these trial systems. I think Cold War's trial system is pretty fun. I think the SAM trial system in Black Ops 6 is also pretty fun, but I don't like that it's the same system on every single map. Black Ops 4 had quite a few different trial systems on their maps that actually worked differently. 9 had the challenges that you get after knifing the rope in the spawn room, and after each challenge you just get a reward at the podium. Ancient Evil had the same system that Cold War has, but it was with the Oracle, and it was pretty cool how it was done. You basically got the challenges from Oracle herself, and as you do better in the challenges, you get higher rarity rewards. And then Toggertone had the Hermit challenges, which required you to go to different totems around the map. There was a total of 5 of them, and each of the totems had 3 of their own challenges that you could do, and they were the exact same every single game. This is what we need to see in Black Ops 7. I want every map to have a very different trial system, because I love having trial systems. It's fun to do challenges in the game for rewards, but the systems should be different map to map. I hate this idea of streamlining all the systems just for the sake of making it simpler for the average player, because that's probably why they do it. They don't want players to have to learn a whole new system every single map, but learning a new system every map is what makes maps replayable. It's what keeps them feeling fresh every single time a new map releases. If you just have the same system every map, by the time we get to DLC 2, many players are just not as interested in the game already. Another thing that would help with map uniqueness is having unique special enemies for each map. I do not want to see a Black Ops 6 situation where so many special enemies are reused on multiple maps. And honestly, in general, I don't think Black Ops 7 should have almost any special enemies from Black Ops 6. If they want to have some of them included in Outbreak, that's fine, but on the round-based maps, there should be 0 Black Ops 6 special enemies. I do not want to see vermin, parasites, doppelgast, The amalgams, manglers, abominations, any of those, they should not be in Black Ops 7. We should have a completely new set of special enemies, along with some returning ones from the older games. I would love to see some Black Ops 3 bosses return, or Black Ops 2, or whatever, but please no more Black Ops 6 special enemies. And within the maps themselves in Black Ops 7, they should be unique map to map. Again, if they want to reuse them here or there, that's fine, just not too much of it. There should not be any boss that appears on more than 2 or 3 maps. And I do want to see each map have a decent amount of special enemies. They just need to use them in ways that doesn't result in boss spam. I do not want to see a bunch of bosses running at you 24/7 on these maps. And I think a great way to achieve this would simply just be having area-specific special enemies. They've done this a few times before. They did it with the spiders on Revelations. They only ever appear inside of the Apothecon. So why not do this with all your round-based maps? Have specific special enemies that only appear in specific areas of the map. That also makes different areas of the map feel more unique from each other. I mean, uniqueness is a big theme of this video. I just keep talking about wanting unique things. Yes, the maps should be unique, and even areas within the maps should be unique. That is really important to making zombies maps feel fun, diverse, and replayable. Now let's talk about the main Easter egg quests, because I would argue this is one of the most important aspects to a Call of Duty Zombies experience, and they really need to nail it in order for the full game to work. I do think Black Ops 6 was a massive improvement over Black Ops Cold War in this category, but I don't think it's nearly as good as some of the Easter eggs from Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, and even Infinite Warfare and World War II has quite a few really good Easter eggs in my opinion. I think Black Ops 6's Easter eggs are decent for what they are. I do enjoy pretty much all of them, but my biggest issue is that they aren't long enough. Quite a few of them feel a little too short, and they feel like they're close to being complex, but not quite there. The actual hunting process of the Easter egg is always more complex than the Easter egg itself. And I do think these Easter eggs should get a little bit more complex. They shouldn't be afraid to go there. I know there's a lot of players that don't like complexity in Easter eggs, but that's why they shouldn't make every map like that, but I think some of them should be. You should have a good mix of complex and simple Easter eggs. And of course, with the introduction of directed mode, casual players are still going to be able to get through the Easter eggs just fine, even if they are complex, because directed mode quite literally carries them through it. Overall, I think we need more complex puzzles, more action-packed steps, less fetch questy type steps. I don't like quests where you just have to go around the map grabbing things and interacting with things. I want it to be more action-focused and, of course, puzzle-focused. And honestly, Black Ops 6 did a really good job with the boss fights for the most part, but the one thing that was missing from these boss fights is more unique mechanics and features within the boss fights. Now, they did a good job with the SAM boss fight, with having these SAM trials included as part of the boss fight. I thought that was pretty cool. They need more stuff like that, where there's different features and mechanics be included in the different phases of the bosses. I'm not a huge fan of bosses that are just bullet sponges and you just keep shooting it until it dies. I think those are sometimes decent if it has a lot of health and the boss is, good otherwise, but it's not usually as interesting as some other boss fights. Mephistopheles obviously is like the best example of a solid boss fight where there's multiple phases. There are moments where you have to shoot him, but it's also about the attacks. It's about learning the attacks, dealing with the attacks, and there's a variety of things you have to do in that boss fight. A lot of people make the argument that they want the Easter eggs to be difficult to hunt but easy to replicate, and I actually kind of disagree with that. I obviously want it to be somewhat difficult to hunt, but I think the replication process should take a while. It should take a while to master, but once you master it, it's fun and enjoyable. The most important thing is making sure that process is fun. And like I said, there's some people who just don't like anything even slightly complex, but personally, I think some complexity is good. You wouldn't have a hardcore portion of the zombies community if we've never had a complex Easter eggs before. But if they don't want to make the main Easter eggs super complex, then I definitely think they should at least do that for the side Easter eggs, which is the next thing I want to talk about, because Black Ops 6 honestly didn't do a fantastic job with the side Easter eggs. I know a lot of people argue that they have been doing a fantastic job with it because there has been a large quantity of side Easter eggs, and I do agree with that. There has been a lot of mini side Easter eggs on those maps, but my issue is that vast majority of those side Easter eggs are very simple and don't really add that much to the map experience. It's totally cool to have a bunch of side Easter eggs like that, don't get me wrong, but I think every map needs at least a few side quests that actually have a decent amount of complexity and depth to them, meaning there's more than just a few steps to actually complete the side Easter egg. Majority of the side Easter eggs in Black Ops 6 are simply just go around the map and shoot a couple of objects and you get a little reward. Like, that is quite literally the majority of them. But I think we need more side quests that actually take a while to complete and give you a really unique and useful reward. Something like the God Mask from Revelations is a great example. It's a fantastic reward that really does change the game because it makes you a lot more powerful, but it takes a while to earn it. You have to actually dedicate a decent amount of time to earning that God Mask. So if they're not going to make the main Easter eggs complex, we definitely need at least a few side quests that are very complex. Give me a puzzle side Easter egg that when you complete this really difficult puzzle, you get some really useful reward. That would be pretty cool. And when it comes to the rewards, like I said, they should be useful and unique. At least for some of them. Of course, not all of them have to be that, but I think you should at least have a few per map that are unique and useful. And Black Ops 6 did have quite a few unique rewards and quite a few useful ones, but very frequently it wouldn't be both at the same time. Like, they would have a unique one like Mega Stuffy or getting to play as Etherella on Liberty Falls, but they wouldn't be that useful to the player because you can't activate it more than once. You only get to use it that one time and then it's just done, so it's not really a useful reward. The Chest Guardian on Citadel is one of the worst side Easter egg rewards of all time, so it's like, what's the point of even doing it? Golden Armor is by far the best side Easter egg reward they give you within any of the BO6 maps. I definitely think that is a good side Easter egg because of that reward. So overall, we just need more stuff like that. The Ether Blade is pretty cool on Reckoning, but it's honestly not that useful. I was hoping it was going to get a massive buff, but it really doesn't do much in the game. Only one person can grab it as well, which I think is kind of silly. I really like the minigame side Easter eggs in Black Ops 6, like the boat racing, the bowling Easter egg on Liberty Falls, and the bartender Easter egg on Citadel. These are all really cool minigames that you can do, but I think they need to rework how minigames operate in COD Zombies because I don't think they should be saved for these short little side Easter egg things. I think they should just be core map mechanics. You should be able to repeat these minigames as many times as you want, at a cost, of course. Maybe this costs like 3,000 points to keep doing it, and maybe you can do it like once per round or something, but it shouldn't be something that you just do once and then you just can't do again. I think it would be really cool if every map had a bunch of minigames all around the map where you can just keep doing it, like I said, as many times as you want, maybe per round, and you get a bunch of cool rewards out of it. I think that would add a lot of life to the maps rather than just being a little side Easter egg. A map like Spaceland does a great job with this. There's so many mini games on Spaceland that you can do and you get ticket rewards out of it. Why not have this be a core feature on literally every map? Imagine just spending a whole game of Terminus trying to get the best possible score you can with boat racing. Would that not be kind of fun? I think it would be. When it comes to the main Easter eggs, I do think we need better rewards for them, and Black Ops 6 did do a pretty good job with actually giving us Easter egg completion reward cosmetics, because previously Easter eggs usually didn't do that. Like, there's not that many Easter eggs in the past that actually gave you cosmetic rewards, but I think there's so much more potential here. So first of all, obviously there should still be the first completion Easter egg reward, and it should always be an operator skin, a weapon blueprint, or a universal weapon camo, and it should be good as well. Don't give us some crappy skins, give us something actually decent out of it. But then there should also be another reward that you get for completing the Easter egg under a specific amount of time to encourage people to speedrun Easter eggs. I've been wanting speedrun Easter egg rewards for so long in Zombies because speedrunning is a pretty fun aspect of Zombies. There's a pretty big speedrunning community there, and I think it makes sense to actually give those players rewards for being able to speedrun these Easter eggs really quickly. Black Ops 6 did have a calling card reward for speedrunning Liberty Falls Easter egg under 30 minutes, which was pretty cool, but calling card rewards are not that interesting to most people. You got to give them something a little bit better than that, like an actual operator skin, a universal camo, or a weapon blueprint. And every map should have this. There should be a reward for completing it for the first time, and then also that reward for completing it under a specific amount of time. They can maybe have 2 tiers to the speedrun rewards as well. Maybe you get one reward for doing Liberty Falls under 30 minutes, but you get another even better reward for completing it under 20 minutes, which just further encourages people to try to speedrun these maps as fast as humanly possible. And maybe they wouldn't want to make specific skins for those rewards because there's obviously not going to be a lot of people who are going to actually complete that. So why not just give those players COD points then? Reward them with COD points so they can use them on any skin they want in the shop. Someone who's able to speedrun Liberty Falls under 20 minutes definitely deserves free skins in the shop. I feel like that's just a given. And of course, it would be different depending on if you were playing solo, duo, trios, or quads. The Easter egg speedrun time would obviously be a bit different. And I also think they should give rewards to players who go to specific high rounds. Maybe getting to round 100 under a specific amount of time would also get you some unique reward. Again, it could be COD points, or it could just be some sort of skin. Or maybe just getting to round 100 in general would give you some kind of reward. I think they'd really need to do stuff like that. Encourage players to do these things in zombies. Because even in Black Ops 6, there's a lot of fun challenges that the community are basically doing just for fun, but they're not really getting any reward out of it. And I think that challenge would be 10 times more enjoyable, and 10 times more people would actually do it if there was a reward. For example, Shattered Veil and Reckoning have round 100 hardcore boss fights. If you go to round 100 and then go into the boss fight, it becomes much harder. And those are definitely fun challenges to do. People are having fun with it, but there's no reward at the end of the day. There should be a reward though. There should be something special that those players get because they're doing something very challenging. It would make sense to reward those players. Call of Duty has been so obsessed with all these different event rewards over the past few years. I mean, sometimes they haven't done great with it, but obviously they love doing all these events where you have to complete it under a specific amount of time to basically make it so people jump on and try to grind out the game in a limited amount of time to get those limited time rewards. But I genuinely think stuff like this, giving rewards for these crazy completions, would actually create way more hardcore fans, which is what they should be trying to do. They shouldn't just be trying to bring in a bunch of new players. They should be trying to make those new players become hardcore fans. And if a casual player sees a really cool reward hidden behind some kind of speedrun thing that they have to do, they might actually end up doing it. They might take the time to learn the speedrun, try to figure it out because they want that really cool reward. And now you just created a hardcore player. You created someone who's going to go watch Freckleston's speedruns to try to learn the best way to do these Easter eggs in as quick as a time as possible, and then they're going to go spend hours upon hours trying to perfect that speedrun because it will take a while for them to master. They're not going to do it right away. That creates replayability. This person is now going to be on the game way longer. The retention rates are going to go up. It's a win-win for everyone. I cannot believe this is something they haven't really done before. Overall, rewards are really important, and I hope Black Ops 7 takes advantage of giving as many rewards to players as possible. Next up, I want to talk about difficulty and overall balance because I actually think this is quite important, and a lot of people act like it isn't. People say that balance shouldn't matter in zombies. They should just make everything overpowered because why the hell not? I don't understand that thought process whatsoever because I think you do need balance in order to make the game somewhat challenging and difficult for the player. And of course, I don't think everything should be very difficult. I think there should be some maps that are a lot easier than others. I think there should be certain modes that make the game easier, which is obviously directed mode, and I wouldn't mind a casual mode being thrown in for the really casual players who don't want any challenge whatsoever. But I do think the core game should have some difficulty to it, and we've already talked about stuff like loadouts and Easter eggs and how I think those should be handled, and I definitely think early rounds need to be more vulnerable for the player, so I definitely think they need to go back to making it so you actually die quite fast in those early rounds. If you get hit by a zombie just a few times, you should be dead, whereas in the newer games it takes a lot of hits in the early rounds to actually die. And a big thing I want them to do is really think about balance when it comes to what they add in the later seasons. This was something that Black Ops 6 did not do well with double tap. They added double tap, and I was really hoping it wasn't going to make the prior boss fights too easy, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Patient 13 and Guardian are now really easy boss fights after the addition of double tap. If you use double tap in those boss fights, you are going to get through them so quickly. Even the Tombs boss fight with the Sentinel artifact is a lot easier with double tap. Now, thankfully, Shattered Veil and Reckoning still have boss fights that are quite challenging because those maps were designed around double tap, whereas the maps before were not designed around double tap. And I love double tap as a perk. I think it definitely was cool that it was added to this game, but they should have balanced it properly. They shouldn't have made it have such a massive effect on the boss fights. And I hope Black Ops 7 takes more care of its balance and makes sure it doesn't have things that are broken without reason. If you're going to have overpowered things, make sure it's something that's hard to earn and don't make it something that's thrown into the game later in the life cycle and retroactively makes a boss fight a lot easier. This is especially something they need to take care of with their score streaks. Do not have a situation like the mutant injection where you can just spam them like crazy and you're completely invincible in the mutant injection suit. There should be some level of skill to the overpowered things as well. They shouldn't be something you just pop and then you just take out everything with ease, but having something that is just completely overpowered every now and then is fine. Like I said, just make it hard to earn. Make it something you have to actually work for, not something you're just kind of given without even trying. Now I want to talk about the melee mechanics of COD Zombies a little bit because I think melee has gotten a lot worse in Call of Duty over the past few years. First of all, I want the melee attack animations to be way better and way more satisfying because honestly in Black Ops 6, they're not that great. For a lot of the melee weapons, the zombies just kind of explode when you melee them, which just looks kind of weird. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. It's not really satisfying because it just looks weird and it a little bit too cartoony for what zombies should be, in my opinion. And I also think they need to heavily rework how the dedicated melee weapons work. Just like with loadouts, I think you should have to actually earn your dedicated melee weapon in the game itself. And there actually was a recent leak that suggests we might be seeing a dedicated melee wall buy system where you have to actually buy your dedicated melee weapon on the wall somewhere on the map. And this was just like my idea with the loadout wall buy, so I think this would be pretty cool. I don't think you should be able to start off with any melee weapon you want. I do think you should have to earn it. And back to the conversation of the point system, I think meleeing should earn you the most amount of points out of anything because meleeing is the most risky thing to do. It's the most risky attack. It's a lot harder to pull off than headshots. If you're using some kind of wonder weapon though, of course, they can change the amount of points you're earning. I wouldn't mind earning less if you're using like a melee wonder weapon like the swords on Citadel, but if you're using a regular melee weapon, I see no reason why you shouldn't be able to get more points out of that. Also, a big thing that I care about is when you melee with your gun out, it should be with the melee weapon itself, not with the butt of your gun. I can't tell you how much I hate the meleeing with the butt of the gun thing in zombies. Obviously, it makes sense in multiplayer, but it is so unsatisfying in zombies. And you might be saying, well, how are they going to make that work with the dedicated melee weapons? Well, guess what? Call of Duty World War II made it work. Call of Duty World War II had dedicated melee weapons before Black Ops 6 did, and if you melee with your gun out, it will melee with whatever your dedicated melee weapon is. There's specific animations for it, and it looks really damn cool too. By default, you should start off with some kind of rusty old knife, just like you do in the older Call of Duty Zombies games where you start off with a really weak knife that is only a one-hit kill on round 1, but whatever round it is, it basically is the amount of hits it's going to take to kill the zombie. Well, at least in the early rounds, of course. But then if you want to earn that dedicated melee weapon, you have to go to the wall buy spot to get it. And of course, you can get other melee weapons out of the mystery box or through other means. If there's like map-unique melee weapons, that would be really cool. World War II did a great job with that. There's so many map-unique melee weapons in that game that are really fun to earn, especially on the Shadowed Throne and the Frozen Dawn. But overall, I think this would add a lot to the classic feel of zombies by being able to melee the zombies with a knife, even if your gun is pulled out. And then of course, being able to earn better melee weapons throughout the map itself. And back to the conversation of the melee animations, I think World War II did a pretty damn good job with melee animations. They are so satisfying and so clean. The way you just stab a knife into a zombie's face and the fact that you could do these longer animations or shorter animations depending on how you knife the zombies, I think it's really amazing and I would love to see them do something similar to that again. Something that Black Ops 6 actually did a really good job with was unique pack-a-punch abilities from weapons, and I want to see more of that in Black Ops 7, but even further than what Black Ops 6 did. World War II Zombies, in my opinion, was the best at this. There are so many unique pack-a-punch abilities on those weapons, and I really think we need to see some crazy stuff like that, which I do think would increase weapon variety quite a bit. I mean, like I said before, the point system would be a big help in increasing weapon variety, but having a lot of unique pack-a-punch abilities that are quite useful for different situations would also be really cool. Now let's quickly talk about the story because I honestly don't have a lot to add to this considering I don't really care that much about the zombie story anymore. I really don't. I play for the gameplay, I play for the Easter eggs, I play for the atmosphere. I'm not really playing for the story, but I still do care about it. I am somewhat interested in it. I just don't care nearly as much as I used to. But I do think with the return of the original characters, of course, different versions of them, I think they need to do something really, really interesting with them. And I really hope that this game can honestly wrap up a lot of the Dark Ether story. I don't think the Dark Ether story should continue beyond Black Ops 7, so I hope whatever they do gives these characters full closure and puts a nice bow on everything, so whenever Black Ops 8 comes out, probably in 2028, we can start a completely brand new story, or maybe continue the Chaos story, or continue some other story. I don't know. Just, I think they need to put a bow on the Dark Ether story and finally finish out these characters for good. In a way that's satisfying, of course. Don't do it in a way that's rushed. Make it actually feel satisfying. I also hope they don't continue the whole characters speaking to you through the comms thing. I'm not a big fan of that. Give a story through intel, Easter eggs, quotes, all that stuff. I don't want the characters to be on the intercom system talking to us through the Dark Ether. Now let's talk about game modes, because of course this game is likely going to have more than just a traditional round-based zombies experience. We already know for a fact that Arcade 4 is going to be there, but what about other game modes that they might add throughout the life cycle? First of all, every game mode that's added in this game needs to be permanent. They need to stop doing the limited time mode thing because nobody cares about those. I don't think there's a single person on Earth who actually wants game modes to be limited time, and I don't think there's any reason why they need to be. I get why LTMs exist in multiplayer and Warzone because you can't have a million different playlist options, since it'll split the player base quite a bit between too many different modes. But in zombies, a lot of people play solo, so I don't see an issue with allowing players who are playing solo to play those modes. If you don't want to have them all available in the public matches, then that's fine. Maybe remove it after a season in public matches, but keep it in private matches. Let people who are playing by themselves or with friends play those different game modes. And when it comes to the game modes themselves, I think they need to focus more on game modes that actually play very different than round-based, because I don't think we need all these modes that just feel like round-based with minor changes. For example, modes like Cranked. I'm not a big fan of Cranked. I think it's okay for what it is, but it's literally just round-based, but there's a timer on how fast you have to kill the zombies. I don't think it's that interesting of a mode. It doesn't really add much to the game for me. Same thing goes for a mode like Zombie Snacks. It just doesn't really add much to the experience. So I'm going to list off every type of game mode I think they should add to this game, and like I said, they need to be permanent. First of all, Grief mode. Of course, that was already in Black Ops 6. It would make sense that they just carry it forward into Black Ops 7, and I do think it should be there either at launch or at the very latest at Season 1. There is no reason why they should make us wait multiple seasons to finally get Grief mode back, considering it's literally in Black Ops 6 right now. And I do think they should make some changes to it as well. I don't think it should work exactly like it did in Black Ops 6, but if the mechanics are closer to what I've been describing in this video, I think it already would be much better, because I think if you have a more classic feeling zombies game with Grief mode, it's going to play a lot better. People are going to be dying a lot quicker. But they desperately need to give us private matches for Grief mode. I think it's such a shame that there's no private matches in Black Ops 6, so you just can't play with your friends in this mode. It's ridiculous. And I think they should go a bit further with the concept of competitive zombies by giving us a game mode that is fully PvP, meaning you can actually kill other players. I've talked about this in many videos before, but I think the blueprint for a PvP mode would be the Zombie Blood Rush mod from Black Ops 3 Zombies. I've played this mod so many times. It's one of the best experiences I've ever had in COD Zombies. The way it works is you basically have two different teams, or I guess you can also do free-for-alls, and the goal is to simply just get as many points as possible. You want to get more points than the other team, but you're just playing on the zombies maps, and it's just regular round-based zombies. Like, there's actually rounds that go by, there's zombies, and the goal is to just get as many points as you can. But you can kill the other players. You can actually damage them, and when you damage them and kill them, you will take their points away and give you more points. So it creates this really interesting situation where you're just on this big round-based map, and you're either camping in your own little area just trying to rack up as many points as you can from the zombies, which you can actually lose points from the zombies as well if you get killed by them or you get hit by them, or you can decide to actually go after the enemy players and try to find them to kill them to take their points away. And when you get killed, you just kind of spawn back like 30 seconds later, so it's not like you're gone from the game forever. And everything else is still there. The perks are there. You can still buy perks, guns, wonder weapons. All that stuff is in the game itself. There's no Easter eggs, of course, but it's just the round-based maps themselves with all of the content included. And you can just either attack the enemy players or just, like I said, rack up as many points as you can from the zombies to try to win the game, because the goal is to get as many points as possible. I think this mode would be revolutionary to COD Zombies. It would quite literally be one of the best things ever. And if done correctly, like I said, I think it would change zombies forever. It would be the most innovative thing they could possibly do. I mean, just think about how this mode would play on a map like Terminus, for example. Imagine you're doing a 4v4. One team is held up on Crab Island. They have secured that island. They are completely holding it down. A bunch of zombies are spawning in and they're killing them as they can. But the other team is still on the main island itself, and they are sniping at the island. They are on that little area where you can see the Crab Island from a distance, and they are trying to snipe the players from the other side. But their team is really good. They are held up good there. They are making sure that they cannot be sniped. So then the team decides, well, they got to jump on a boat and they got to actually attack them head on. So they get into a couple different boats and they go around the side of this island, and one player is driving the boat, the other player is shooting at the players on the island, trying to damage them as much as possible to take away as many points as possible. And this would work even better than Grief in my opinion, because there would be a time limit. You can actually do like a 30-minute time limit for the mode. So whenever that time ends, whichever team has the most points wins. You don't have to deal with the situation of Grief mode where it could technically go on forever. Instead, there's a definitive end to it. The goal is just to damage the enemies as much as you can, to take away their points, get as many points as you can from killing zombies and killing other players. And like I said, this mode would be fantastic. Nobody could convince me otherwise. I would also love to see Gauntlet mode from Black Ops 4 return. This is a mode where there was a different challenge each round that you had to complete, and then it ended at round 30 with the final challenge. I think it would work even better than the Black Ops 4 version if they made it so the challenge was different every single time you played, rather than being the exact same challenge each time, because that was the only problem about Gauntlet, where it got a little bit repetitive since the challenges were always the same. I think it'd be fun if each round was something completely different and just had you complete each challenge and then eventually when you reach round 30, it would end in the Easter egg boss fight from that map. That's what they did on 9 and Ancient Evils Gauntlet in BO4, and I think it's a pretty fun way to end it. I would also love to see a gun game mode come to Zombies. We've seen this in custom Zombies many different times, but it would be really fun as an official mode. And it would also be a pretty competitive mode because the goal is to get through all of the guns as fast as possible. Basically, you have to get a certain amount of kills with your gun to move on to the next gun, and the goal is to get through all of the guns in the lineup. And if you're in a lobby with 3 other players, you would want to try to get through that lineup of guns faster than everyone else. Whoever gets through it first wins the game. That would be a really fun competitive mode they could add. And of course, you could still play it solo as well and just try to see how fast you can get through all of the guns. That would be really fun. Another game mode that I would love to see them do, but I'm not expecting it because this would take a lot more work than these other modes because it would require unique maps for it. And that is a parkour challenge map. And so the best way I can describe what I mean by this is the custom map Cheese Cube. This is a very iconic custom Zombies map where you have to go up this tower of cheese and there's a bunch of different parkour things you have to do to get up there, and all while you're doing it, zombies are attacking you. And the thing is, Call of Duty already has a lot of parkour courses that they've added throughout COD history, like for example the free run courses in Black Ops 3, they did the Get High mode in Modern Warfare 3 2023, which I thought was really fun. And if you look at the campaign trailer for Black Ops 7, there's a lot of missions that look like they're going to have some crazy parkour sections just based on how trippy and crazy the layouts are for these maps. I mean, look at this one image of the Los Angeles area. It looks like a parkour course. And I think it'd be really fun if they added one of these courses into a zombies experience, making it so you have to go through this course while killing zombies, while avoiding zombies, and try to get to the other side just like you do on Cheese Cube. Like I said, definitely unrealistic for them to do something like that, but I think it would be really damn cool. Now let's talk about the survival maps, because that's something they've already announced for Black Ops 7 Zombies, that they are going to be doing little survival maps cut out from the main maps. At least that's what they're doing with Farm. I don't know if they're going to be doing that with all their survival maps, but I'm assuming they are going to be doing that. And I think each main map in the game should have at least 1 to 2 survival maps cut out of them, and they should be given to players about a month after the main map is released. So for example, let's say we get DLC 1 with Season 1's launch. Season 1 Reloaded should give us the survival maps cut out from that map, and they should be doing that for every single main map that they do. I would also love to see a few survival maps cut out from the Avalon map. I don't expect any completely unique survival maps, and that's totally fine. I think the only maps that need to be full unique are the main maps themselves, but when it comes to survival maps, I don't want them to spend a lot of time making a unique location for that. That's a waste of development time. They should be saving that for the main maps, making those maps as big and as in-depth as they can be, but the survival maps should just be other locations in the game. And I would love to see some of them from Avalon, because Avalon has a lot of cool locations. For example, the casino. I really want to see the casino as a survival map in Black Ops 7 Zombies. Now, honestly, I would love a full map of a casino as well, like an actual main experience, but even if it's just a survival map, that's totally fine with me, as long as they let you gamble your points in the casino. Just imagine how cool that map would be. It doesn't have to be that big. It's just the little casino area itself. But imagine you can just go around and gamble your points on the slots machines, play a roulette table, all these different things, and you can win a lot of points, you can lose points, or whatever it may be. Just imagine being able to spend all your time in that casino with zombies chasing after you every now and then. I think that would be a lot of fun. And survival maps in general should basically be the answer to the casual fan who wants simplistic maps. These are what these are meant to be. They're meant to be maps you just jump into and have fun. Pack-a-Punch should not be something you have to unlock. It should just be kind of given to you. There doesn't need to be any Easter eggs or any complex stuff like that. Everything should be in the mystery box, any wonder weapons, whatever it may be. And this should allow the developers to make the main maps as complex and as in-depth as possible without worrying about the casual player, because those players can just play these survival maps. They already have experiences in the game that are going to give them that easier and simpler experience that they've been looking for. But I do think the difficulty should be quite diverse between these survival maps. Some of them should be very easy, laid-back experiences that are meant for camo grinding, and then other ones should be a lot harder that kind of resemble the classic maps back in the day that were meant to be very tight and very difficult to survive in. Now we gotta talk about open world zombies a little bit, because it is already rumored that some sort of open world zombies experience is going to be coming to Black Ops 7 Zombies, and it might be playable on the Avalon map. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of open world zombies. Of course, I would much rather they put most of their work into the round-based experiences and those other game modes I mentioned. But if it's going to happen, I really do hope it is very different than Cold War's Outbreak and Modern Warfare 3's MWZ, because I really don't think both of those modes nailed the open world zombies feel. To me, open world zombies should be a giant map, of course, that being Avalon, where you get to explore each POI, and each POI basically feels like its own round-based map. It's full of content, full of depth, full of quests, and there should even be POI-specific special enemies that you'll only find in those areas. And overall, this experience should basically be a sandbox of Modern Warfare Zombies, Black Ops 6, and Black Ops 7 content, because of course that content would be easily accessible since it's all on the COD HQ application. So there should basically be wonder weapons, enemies, and all that stuff from all of those maps available in this open world experience somewhere on the map. As an example, there's a Coliseum POI on the Avalon map. It would be really cool if you had to do some sort of quest in the Coliseum to get the Citadel de Mor swords, and maybe you have to fight the Guardian boss from Citadel at the Coliseum. I think that would obviously fit that POI, and it'll be quite a fun experience to have. And the overall gameplay loop of this mode should basically be like round-based, where the rounds get progressively harder and harder, but the way it should work in open world is that it should be time-based, meaning after a certain amount of time, the rounds will just go up automatically. So basically, if you're in the game for like an hour, you're going to be at round 30 at that point pretty much every single time. And it should go infinitely. There should be no time limit. It should not be like Modern Warfare Zombies where you have to exfil after a certain point. Of course, you can exfil, but you should not be required to do so. You should be allowed to stay in there as long as you want. And of course, this should be a mode that you can play solo or with other friends. And I would be totally fine if they also had a mode where you can jump in this world with 32 other players, just like you could with Modern Warfare Zombies. And just like with MWZ, I do think you should be able to loot things around the map and exfil with them to carry them into future games, but if you die, you lose all of it. So it's basically a risk versus reward scenario where you can stay in the match as long as you want, but of course, the longer you stay in there, the more likely you are to die. Therefore, it might be safer to just exfil once you get the good loot and then just bring it into the next match. Overall, like I said, I would prefer they just focus on round-based, but if they're going to do open world, I definitely think there's a way to nail it and they can genuinely make it a really fun experience. And last, but certainly not least, Dead Ops Arcade 4, of course, is going to be in Black Ops 7, and I just hope it's good, but I honestly don't have much to say about it because I have a lot of faith in Dead Ops Arcade 4. It's gotten better and better with each iteration. I expect this to be possibly even better, or at least as good as Dead Ops Arcade 3. The one thing I want from it is I do want to see the first person mode added. Not right away though, maybe some point later in the life cycle. I do think it's good to keep it as its core experience at first, but then eventually give players the option to play it fully in first person. And they definitely need to bring back the wild from Dead Ops Arcade 3. That was one of the coolest features of Dead Ops Arcade 3. I would love to see that come back in DOA 4. So all in all, that is my full wish list for Black Ops 7 Zombies. I know I had a lot to talk about, but that's because there's a lot that I want out of this game. I think this is by far the most important zombies game of all time because of the fact that according to leaks, we might not be seeing zombies in COD 2026 or COD 2027, which means this will be the longest we will be going without any new zombies content since it was first made in 2008 with World at War. So Black Ops 7 has to be a very great and replayable game in order to keep the zombies community going all the way until Treyarch's next game in 2028. If this game ends up being just like Black Ops 6 and doesn't really do much beyond what Black Ops 6 was, I don't think that's going to be good for the community whatsoever. And like, I enjoyed Black Ops 6 for what it was, but Black Ops 7 needs to be far beyond that. And I really do think it needs to go back to some of those classic systems to keep fans playing this game for the next few years. Overall, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Peace out, everyone.